¿Pero de qué? Ahora mira.
Hello, everybody. How are you? Good afternoon here in Mexico City. My name is Alejandro Castillo, and I'm broadcasting from Mexico City, as I told you, the largest city in the world. Today, this is Thursday, July the 23rd of 2020. This is episode 79. So I'm very honored to have a very special guest today. I know him. I have attended some events in the West Coast, especially for World League, and attended also the barbecue, great event organized by my man Matt Garhoff, greatest fan in the world of volleyball. So, well, it's a pleasure for me to welcome Jeremy Roueche, aka DJ Roueche, all the way to Los Angeles. How are you, Jeremy?
I'm doing great. Thanks for having me. I appreciate it.
No, it's an honor for me to that you accept the invitation. I have been doing this for the last 3 months, I think, and I really want to have you here in the show. Thanks a lot for accepting, Jeremy.
I'm happy. I always love talking about myself. I mean, talking about volleyball.
Well, you are a really important part of current volleyball in the USA. We'll talk a little about that. Hey, that's a nice equipment you have behind you.
Yes, I have had to convert my garage into a little bit of a DJ booth. So I live stream a DJ set once a week called Why Not Wednesdays, just to do something. I don't have too much going on like I normally do. So I started live streaming for an hour each Wednesday from 2 to 3 my time, West Coast time, and got to keep myself entertained. So that's that whole setup behind me now. Like, it looks way more professional. Doesn't look like a garage, but I'm in my garage.
Oh yeah, I have been there. I think once. No, I think 2 or 3 times in your show on Wednesday. It's great. You're a great DJ, a great sense of music, and I really appreciate that because we in this pandemic we have to keep busy in these days.
Yeah, and that's how it started. Like, I was bored. I wasn't motivated to make music, to DJ, and I was like, I just need to do something. And I started organizing music on my DJ laptop, just to organize a little bit better. And it got the creative juices flowing. And I was like, oh, let me just DJ. And every other DJ in the world was live streaming. And I think yesterday's live stream was week number 12 for me. So I've done it 12 weeks in a row, and I will continue to do it as long as at least one person tunes in, usually my mom at least. So we'll be fine.
That's great. That's great. Yes, I think Armin van Buren is also doing that from Netherlands. I think every week it's very entertaining.
Yeah, I think the DJ is. We all tried to find something to do when we had no more gigs. You couldn't travel. There was nowhere to go. So everybody was online. And I know some people are getting out of their houses more and stuff now, but a lot of people are still at home or at work. They tune in while they're at work and listen to it as well, too. So I think it was as much for us as it was for everybody at home that had nothing else to do. Like, let's just play some good music and have fun.
Yeah, I had here, I think 2 months ago, Rob Espero, you know him very well. 1 month and a half ago, Joan Cruzilla, the MC in France, Helen Lee, the MC in Japan. Well, all of you and all of we are stopped right now. We have no events, we have no volleyball, we have no sports, so we have to keep busy. It's part of the reason I started this project that has been amazing. This is the episode number 79.
Nice.
Thanks a lot. Thanks a lot for being here, Jeremy. You're a really volleyball personality, and I really like your music. You're a really nice guy. I really like you. The time I spend in California. So thanks for being here, Jeremy.
Of course, my pleasure.
Really appreciate it. And well, the current theme about the coronavirus. How are you dealing in California with this thing, Jeremy?
I am keeping to my wife and I, like, we're pretty much keeping to ourselves as much as all the rules are. Like, if we have to go somewhere, it's to the grocery store, or if we pick up food, it's just to pick up food. But other than that, it's pretty much the same thing every single day. We go for walks in our neighborhood. So I've been up and down every single street in my neighborhood. Fortunately, the weather is amazing in California, so we can always get outside, which I'm happy about. But we're just taking it, I think, one day at a time, like everybody else is, right? Like, I remind myself it's not just Los Angeles. It's not just California. It's not just the United States. The entire world is dealing with this. So when you put it into that perspective, it's not just you. Like everybody is dealing with it. And some people are having a harder time dealing with it than others. So I just try to take it one day at a time, and I can only can control what I can control. So I just go from there.
Yes, I know. And for that, it's very important that volleyball is back, right? Casey Patterson told me that Tuesday, yesterday in Blanton. It's like it's like a splash of words, it's like a bomb, right?
Yeah, it was the first time I set my alarm in like 4 months. I set my alarm for 6 a.m. and I woke up a half hour before. No, I'm sorry. The first morning, Saturday morning, I woke up at 4:20 a.m. and did not go back to sleep because as soon as I woke up, I was like, okay, I'm ready to go. But um, first time I set my alarm, and it felt good to work again. It was different work environment, but it felt good to be outside, see people I haven't seen in months, and but also remember that times are different. Like I couldn't just hang out with people like I normally would at an event, or they couldn't hang out with me in the DJ booth like they normally do. But it was just good to see them play. And I'm a volleyball fan before I was the volleyball DJ. So I just enjoy getting to see volleyball, whether I'm working the event or if I have to sit home and watch it on Amazon Prime, that's fine. Either way, I'm going to consume volleyball, but I have one of the best seats in the house. So it's amazing to get to work and watch a sport I love at the same time.
And that's great that this is streaming in the AVP is streaming in Amazon Live Prime because we in Mexico can watch that, and
Oh,
that was
good.
great.
Good.
That's great. I saw Kevin Barnett and Dean Blanton and the games. It's hard to imagine beach volleyball stadium or arena without fans, but well, this is reality. But I think AVP did a great job, right?
Yeah, I when I got home Saturday night from the first event this past weekend, I turned on the broadcast and watched some of the re-air just to see it from what people watching it on Amazon Prime saw it as, and to hear how my music was coming across because I was playing it a little bit differently than I would play it if there were fans there. So I wanted to hear, kind of critique what I was doing, see it, and I think the biggest difference with the AVP is since they didn't build a stadium with stands, it doesn't look as empty as if you were watching a baseball game at Dodger Stadium with 50 some odd thousand empty seats, or at a soccer stadium with a bunch of empty seats. Because I think that adds to the, oh, yeah, there's nobody there. Where on the Amazon Prime broadcast, Josh Glazebrook, who designed the site, like it looked really good and we were all compact. And so I think because it wasn't that spread out, it kept the energy on the court. And I was curious about what the level of play was going to be like when people haven't played for so long, but I was not let down at all whatsoever. Every match that I saw on Stadium Court was amazing, and the players were all playing at a high level. And I hope they're all feeling good this week and ready to do it again in a couple of days.
Yes, I hope so. There will the same fixture for the games, the same
Yes.
players.
So we're in the same exact spot for 3 weeks. They don't have to tear down the venue and put it back up. It gets to stay the same for 3 weeks. So that I'm sure helps the operations crew a lot because normally you're on the beach and once the tournament's over, you got to break it down, fly to the next city, set it all back up again. So they were there maybe a week before the first tournament setting up, and I'm sure there'll be some minor things they have to do, but they don't have to tear the site down. They can stay up there for till the end for 2 more weeks at least.
And I think it's a parking lot, right, in Long Beach. It's not the beach.
It is not the beach, and that's part of why they could keep it up because you're not on a public area. You're in the convention center parking lot and it has a fence all the way around it, so it's essentially its own bubble for that word that we're using now. And you can only get in there if you're on the list. I did see on last Friday I had to go sound check for the during the qualifier. There were some fans outside the venue trying to see if they could see over the fence, but that's you're not gonna be able to do that. I mean,
Well,
you can try, but it's just not gonna work for you.
oh, yeah, it looks like a big wall. We don't want to talk about walls, but
Yes, correct. Yeah, it was not that big of a wall. It was just a fence with some green scrim on it, so you can't see in, and it kept us all safe and kept people from outside safe. So it felt very secure inside. Once you got in, like I didn't feel nervous at all one bit. And once I started playing music, uh, tried to get back into the groove as best I could.
okay, that's great. Do you think if everything goes okay with these 3 weekends, do you think there could be more beach volleyball this year in South California, or it's difficult?
Yeah, I don't know. I think I'm sure. I mean, I would love to have more volleyball. I don't know what the AVP is thinking on that. I don't know what the players' thoughts are on that. The more the volleyball, the better. Like I love the sport. I don't know what all of their. It's not just the AV. If the AVP wanted to put on an event next week in a different location, it's not that simple. There's so many, government, local governments, health guidelines, and all that stuff that they have to go through and getting permits. So it's not just up to them. There's so many people that have to decide. But hey, if there's more volleyball events in 2020, I'm in.
Yeah, well, we were talking before going live, and I was telling you that I spoke um, on Saturday. I have as a guest to Angelo Scale, the FIVB new events director, a long time beach volleyball director, and he told me that this week they are deciding that if the four-star scheduled for Cancun in November goes on, because the local government, they want to have the event, they have the money, but it's a problem of how many teams can travel to Cancun.
Yeah, I think doing an international event is going to be way more difficult than doing a domestic event or tour. Because your country could be doing a great job of containing what's going on, but if you're
Not
inviting,
exactly, not
yeah,
exactly.
well, I mean, they like, yeah, but for example, like if it was any other country, like they could be doing a good job, and then you invite people from a country that's not, or like I'm not even sure from the United States, there are certain countries we're not allowed to fly to right now, so I don't know how that would work. So I think it's a little bit more difficult for international events to happen than it is for a domestic event.
Yeah, well, and you heard yesterday or Tuesday, the mayor of Tokyo, he told that if there's no vaccine or a treatment for corona, there will be no Olympics, and that's a very honest declaration, a very since.
Yeah, I mean, I think we have to be honest, and I would be heartbroken for not only friends of mine that are potentially going to the Olympics, but any Olympian that has worked as hard as I know how hard they have to work to get to the Olympics. And I would feel terrible for them because some of them, this could be their first and only Olympics, could be their last Olympics, could be their only chance to make an Olympic, and then they can't. Like, there's so many things that go into it. So I'd feel bad for everybody involved, even as a fan. Like, I want to see the Olympics. So, but safety is first. You don't want to you got to keep everybody safe.
Yes, of course. Well, we hope that there's a vaccine for in
Yep.
this year.
Yeah. Hopefully they don't have to make that decision right now, so we have a little bit of time, I think.
Yeah, I have heard that there are a lot of experiments or treatments in testing in United States, in Russia, including Germany, in the United Kingdom. So we hope so, not only for volleyball, not only for sports, because we are humans, right? And
Yeah.
we have
Totally.
to return to normal life.
Well, I just assume that there are people who are way smarter than me working on that stuff, so that makes me feel more confident that it's not up to me. It's up to somebody way smarter than me.
Yes, of course. Thanks, Jeremy. So, Jeremy, again, thanks to be here for being here. It's an honor for me that you accepted. And well, please tell us something about your beginnings. I know that you are an East Coast guy, right?
Yep.
And I know I can assume that before you arrived to Southern California, you had never heard of volleyball or beach volleyball, or yes?
Um, I'd heard of it. Like, I remember watching probably mid '90s. Karch and Kent would be
Yeah.
on NBC on Saturdays or Sundays or whatever day of the week it was. And I always excited when it was on. Like, I never knew when it would come on, but I would stumble across it. And then, yeah, where I grew up in Virginia, right outside Washington D.C.
Right.
And volleyball at that time was considered a girls' sport. So there was not. I don't. If there was an option for boys to play volleyball at a young age, I didn't know anything about it. And so I came across volleyball in the later years of high school. There was one sand court near my high school that we would go play, and by play I mean I can only imagine how terrible we were because all I knew was what I saw on TV, and I was trying to do that and on my own, and no one had ever taught me. So I knew I loved volleyball from back then. And then when I moved to California, of course, the beaches are huge, and I'm like, yeah, I'm going to go play volleyball. And I go down to the beach and realize I am terrible at volleyball. And then I got to the AVP job just pure by luck, and I now have to attribute all of my volleyball skills to learning from the best players in the world because I get to sit there and have a front row seat to watching them all day long, or they'll come up in the DJ booth and they'll talk to me, or they were talking to Geeter, or they're talking to Mark, and you'll hear them talk about strategy of the game, and all that stuff sinks in on me. So it makes me love the sport that much more.
It's great. You started in music in Virginia, also in the East Coast.
Yeah. So looking back at my childhood, I realized I always loved music. I was always into it. And then a buddy of mine was a DJ and asked me one day if I'd help him DJ an event. And I said, sure. Not knowing what that meant. Like I was just helping him with his equipment. He was doing all the DJing. And back then the equipment was, all the music wasn't just in a laptop. Like you had to carry lots of music. So
I know that.
yeah, I helped him with all of his equipment, and it was like a middle school, eighth grade dance. And I loved it from that point. I was like, oh, cool. I always want to do this. Didn't know it would be a full-time job, but I fell in love with it right away. And I would go to his house almost every day during the week, just practicing DJing on his equipment. And then we moved to California. He's the reason I moved to California. He was going to grad school out here in California and asked me if I'd want to move. And I was like, yes. And that was why I moved to California, just because somebody asked me if I wanted to. And I was out here and just DJing part-time. I worked in the music industry. I worked for Maverick Records that Madonna owned. So
Yeah.
I got to meet Madonna, which was pretty cool at 21 years old. And then the AVP came calling just out of nowhere. And then all of a sudden I was a sports DJ. I had no idea that was a thing. Didn't know.
Out of nowhere. Out of nowhere.
So a friend of mine, a former coworker, I worked in the music industry, and the company after Maverick I was working at, they went bankrupt. And I was DJing, and I was like, I don't want to get a quote unquote real job again. So let me see if I was DJing enough where I was like, let me try to make this a full-time thing. So in 2002, I created my own company and
VALA Entertainment.
Yep, VALA Entertainment, and kept trying to put the word out there of that I was DJing. And I was out one night and I ran into a former coworker, and she said, oh, what are you doing now? I'm DJing full-time. Oh, I know somebody that needs a DJ for some volleyball thing. And that volleyball thing turned out to be the AVP.
Wow, that's great. And
yeah.
How was your beginnings in volleyball?
How
did you get the tempo for the plays and for the music?
I faked it as I knew the sport. Like I already knew the sport. I knew the AVP. I'd been to AVP events. But prior to me being there, so if you come to an AVP event, it's a little bit different than an international event. I am playing music all day long. From the time I get there to the time it ends, there's always music playing if you're on stadium court. And the FIVB does it, for those I don't know, like there's always music playing, but not during play. So as soon as they serve the ball, there's no music. As soon as the ball hits the ground, music comes on. AVP, we do it differently. There's music all the time, except for during the finals. During the finals, I do it a little bit more FIVB style. So my first year on the AVP was the first year where they wanted to do music all the time. They hadn't done it before that. So getting to do music all the time, like I didn't realize how much music I would need for an 8-hour day, which is a lot of music. If you just average it out at 3 minutes a song for 8 hours, you can do the math.
Yeah.
So, I knew the sport, so I knew the rhythm of the sport, but the things I know now that I didn't know then is a little bit embarrassing, but I didn't know it. So I didn't know what I didn't know at that time. I always tell the story that during my first AVP finals in Fort Lauderdale, Florida, the way the speakers were set up is they were in the stands. So they were blasting the fans. They was really close to the fans, and I was just murdering them with how loud the music was. And at one point the generator went out. So all the power on stadium court went out. So the music went out. And when the music went out, the crowd started applauding that the music went out.
Really?
Yeah. So they were cheering that I wasn't playing music anymore. So that was a humbling experience and a learning experience. So I tried not to kill them with the audio levels from that point on. But my equipment is different now. I was using CDs then. Now it's all digital. It's changed a lot since I started in 2003.
Well, I have been involved in volleyball since, I fell in love with volleyball in the 84 Olympics
Mm-hmm.
in Los Angeles, watching Karsh Girai, Steve Timmons, and Craig Bogg, Bob Starklick, all those guys. I fell in love with the game. When I sucked as a player, I was terrible playing volleyball.
We
But
all can't be awesome.
but I love the game, you know.
Hmm.
And once I went into college, I started to referee some games because I want to keep involved in the game. I will An extra money is always welcome, you know. But in recent years, well, I have worked in marketing and sales a lot of time, but volleyball is always there, you know. It's volleyball. I love volleyball, and since 3 years to now, I think 3 years to now, I decided to not exactly to DJ because I think that we the people of volleyball has the responsibility to grow the game, you know,
Yep.
and I think an empty arena, an empty gymnasium is very sad. Right now in these times is compulsory, but in regular times I think it's pretty sad. It's pretty boring, you know. And I went to this club, my club, for a long time, and I told them, hey, I want to do some DJ. Let's play some music. Let's make some things different. In the beginning, they told me, "Hey, are you crazy? We don't need music. Why music?" And when I started with music, he told, "Hey, why only in English? Why only hip hop or rock?" Well, because it's the music I like, you know.
Hmm.
But I have been improving. Obviously, I'm not the Jerry Roueche. I'm
Well,
pretty far from being DJ Roueche. But also, you gave me some tips. You remember with you told me to use Serato and things like that. And I think every club or every university of every state association has to do little things in their own, you know. And well, I started doing that. And in the first time, same as you, I was terrible.
yeah, of
I,
course.
I went last year to the national championships of college beach volleyball in
Hmm.
Colima. No, no, in Nayarit, and it was great. You know, it was great to play music all the time. The atmosphere is different for the players, for the coaches, for the referees, for the fans in the bleachers. It's been a great experience. You know, I last year for another experience. I went to Colima for the Cabanan Cup. I always try to be in touch very close with the USA volleyball team. You know,
Hmm.
last year I know this guy Milan Sarkovic, the coach from Hawaii. He's crazy. And David Hunt of Pepperdine was there, and Kyle Agostino and Josh Tuaniga, and they enjoyed the music. The other players and the other teams enjoyed the music, the fans, and it was by far my great event.
Cool.
But you know, when you are watching 2 or 3 thousand people cheering and yelling and dancing with your music, it's great because you have to read the audience. You understand me very well. When to put Queen and when to put some Latin music. It's not Latin all the time. It's not rock all the time. It's not
Hmm.
hip hop all the time. But it has been great for me. I don't know if that was the same way for you.
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, it's one of those things like doing a sporting event, like your musical knowledge has to be large. Like I grew up on hip hop, so if you probably listen to my music, I probably play more hip hop than I do any other genre percentage wise, just because that's probably what I like. But you have to know so much music because at an event, there's such a, especially volleyball, there's such a wide variety of age group, gender, all of that stuff. So you need to know a lot. And actually, I love music in general. So I know this is a joke about people like I'm not a big country music fan, but there are country songs that I like. So if it's a song I like, I'll play it. I don't care what the genre is, um, and I'll never say, "Oh, I hate whatever," and I'll never play that because you just never know. What if there's, I'm not a, I would never, no one would ever claim I'm a Miley Cyrus fan, but there are a couple Miley Cyrus songs that I like, so that's fine. Yeah, but those are things that you have to know, right? Like you have to be open to that stuff and reading the crowd, like you said, that is the most difficult skill to learn as a DJ. I can teach you how to use the equipment, no problem. I can give you all of my music, no problem. But you're not going to play it the same way that I would play it because I've had 15 more years of reading a crowd than somebody who's trying to do it now for the first time. Um, and in sports too, it's hard because trying to, you're doing two things. You're reading the crowd and you're also trying to accompany the match. And the way I look at DJing sports is I'm there to complement what's going on. It's not about me. People will show up to an AVP event. They'll show up to a Lakers game, regardless whether I'm there. So they're not there for me. So my job is to complement what's going on and make sure they're having as good of a time as they can. And I know not everybody's going to like every single song I play, and that's fine. I can't help that. But I look at my job as I'm going to try to get as many people to enjoy what's going on as I possibly can.
Yeah, yes, I understand very well that. But for me, for example, I don't really like reggaeton. I hate it.
Yeah, and that's fine. Yeah.
I try to not put reggaeton, but maybe it's somebody's paying for that. Well, I put it.
Yeah.
Just tell me which artist or which songs are there because I don't know that.
Yeah. Yeah. That's the thing. If it's not music that you really like, but sometimes on the rare occasions you have to play something you don't like, and that's fine.
Yeah, but I especially play rock and hip hop. I really love hip hop.
Yep.
Jeremy, and well, you arrived to Southern California in the mid '90s or in the late '90s.
The summer of 1997 was when I got to Southern California.
Nice. Oh, you were there for the World Championships of beach volleyball in UCLA, or at that time, right? Almost there.
If yes, but when I got here, I didn't get involved in sports until 2003. So it took a few years for me to, you know, find out what kind of job I was going to do, where I was going to live, all that kind of stuff. So I was more focused on that at first when I got here than anything else.
You were more like a party DJ.
A little bit like some clubs, corporate events, weddings, those kind of things. And like I said, I hadn't DJ'd one sporting event until I DJ'd an AVP event in April of 2003.
Okay, so the call arrived for AVP, and that was a turning point in your career, of course.
Yeah, because in the DJ world, it's word of mouth. That's how you get jobs. And the AVP is, however many events you have each year, those are steady paychecks. Like if there's going to be eight events, you have 8 events throughout the summer. If it's going to be 18 events, you have 18 events. So, some months before I got the AVP, like I'd have 1 gig. Another month I'd have 8 gigs. So then when the AVP happens, it becomes a little bit more steady. And then the 2004, 2005 was my first year in the NBA. So then during the summer, you have consistent work with AVP. During the fall, winter, I had consistent work with volleyball or with basketball, and then everything else still kind of fit in between. I I don't do weddings anymore because it's hard to plan that. Like during normal times, if you want to get married next June and you call me, I don't know what the AVP schedule is yet, so I don't know if I'm free. So part of my company is I got a few other DJs that do gigs for me and they can do all my weddings. So right now, most of my stuff I think the majority of my stuff would be sporting events, few clubs here and there, corporate gigs from time to time. And yeah, I never would have thought sporting events would be a thing that I would do for a living, but here we are.
Great. And you remember that we have a pending for my birthday party
Yes, well, was that how many years ago was that
two
now?
or 3 years ago, I
Yeah, I
think.
remember.
Yeah, there was it was impossible that time. I hope for the not this year, maybe next or on 2022 will be my 50th anniversary. Maybe it's a good
Nice.
number.
Look, if
We will fix that.
at this point, I'll take any DJ gig. So let's go.
Hey, and well, tell us something about that of the NBA. I know that you started with the LA Clippers,
Yep,
and now you are in the big stage with the
that's right.
Lakers. You
Upgrade.
you play 3 times a week music for King LeBron.
Yes, it is. Every once in a while, you have to remind yourself that, oh yeah, I'm DJing some really cool events, right? Like DJing AVP events. Like you can take it for granted because I've been doing it for so long, and then every once in a while, you're like, hey, I'm on a pier in New York City playing music for volleyball. Same thing happened at Staples Center. I'll be DJing a game, and I'll hear the PA announcer say LeBron James's name, and I was like, yeah, he's the best player in the world right now, and he's on the team that I get to DJ for, and a team that is known around the world. Like I tell people this all the time. Like because I am the Lakers DJ, and this was my 4th season. I've gotten more gigs because I'm the Lakers DJ than I did the 12 years prior to that combined, being with the other Los Angeles team. And that's just based on their name recognition. Like people know them around the world. And it was funny because the timing of that was when I got hired for the Lakers was 2016, right before I went to Rio for the Olympics. Like
Yes, yes, yes.
I knew it was going to happen, but we signed the deal like a month beforehand, and there were some articles that were written about it. So being the Lakers DJ at the Olympics put a lot of spotlight on me, and I was very thankful for it. And I was doing this. I'm doing the same stuff I've always done, but just because of who you're with, you just get that much bigger of a name.
And you were, I remember you were in the Olympics. Then you went back to California for a couple of weeks, and then returned for the Paralympics, right?
Yeah. So I was actually in Rio 3 times that year. I went in February because they do test events in the city. I actually did swimming. I was at the swimming venue in February, and it was extremely warm. And I didn't get to get in the pool all day long. I'm just dripping sweat, and the pool's 10 feet away from me, but I can't get in because I got to play music. So I was there in February. Then I went back in August for the Olympics. Came back to LA. I did an international event, volleyball event in Long Beach. Then the AVP was in Chicago. I flew to Chicago, and from Chicago, I went back to Rio to do the Paralympics, where I got to see my friends and my women's sitting team win the gold medal.
Yeah, that's great. Last Friday, I don't know if you remember, I had here Joe Campbell,
Oh, okay.
president of
Yeah.
Paravolley Pan American.
Yeah, he's a great guy. Every time I see him, he always comes up to me and says hi. Like even if I don't see him first, like he makes his way to me. He's a great guy.
Yeah, yeah, he's great guy, very, very entertaining, a very funny guy. Thanks to Lori Okimura for making the connection with
Cool.
Joe Campbell. And well, I also know, Jeremy, that you are right now the national champion with your team of national of sitting volleyball, right? You
Back
really
to
endorse that.
back. We're 2 time sitting champions. Yes, I fortunate that because of the podcast, the Net Live, that Kevin Barnett and I did for 9 years. It was started with Kevin Barnett, Reed Pretty, Dan Madden, and then I came in a few years later. And because of that, Katie Holloway, who plays on our women's sitting team, reached out and asked if we'd be interested in playing at the Nationals. And I was like, yeah, let's do this. So we went and we played, and my body has never hurt more in my entire life playing any other sport than playing
Really?
sitting volleyball. Yeah.
Oh, really?
I had bruises in places that I didn't know I could bruise. I was sore in places that I didn't know had muscles. And so our first year, I think we've played 5 times. Our first 2 years, we got the bronze. Our third year, we lost we didn't get bronze. We didn't get any medals, which I was very disappointed about. And then the last 2 years, we went back to back gold.
Wow, it's great.
It is people who don't know, when they're like, oh, sitting volleyball, they're like, are you just being lazy? And I'm like, sitting volleyball is way more difficult than playing standing on the beach or playing standing indoor, because I have to use parts of my body that I've never used before to try to move around the court. And it's so fast and so fun. And watching our men's team get to play, watching the women win gold for the first time after getting silver in the prior 2 Paralympics, like it was a really cool experience to be a part of. And getting to do it in Rio, like it's, you know, I said this earlier to somebody, like when I'm old and more gray than I am now, and I get to sit down and write my memoirs, like talking about some of those cool things that you don't realize how cool they are until you get a little bit of perspective on it. But being DJing getting to DJ for the AVP has opened so many other doors for me that never would have ever happened.
Great, Jeremy. Let's go back a little with the Lakers,
Sure.
Lakers job. Um, how amazing is to get into the Staples Center every 3 or 4 nights a week, and know that you are DJing for one of the greatest teams, one of the most recognized teams in the world.
It's pretty cool because not right. There's only a few professional NBA teams in the world, and then to be part of one of them is a big deal, and then to be part of one that is probably the most famous is a really big deal. You can feel the energy in the building. My first year, they were a very young team. We didn't have LeBron yet, but they were an exciting young team, and you knew they had potential, but you knew they weren't going to win. And then when you get LeBron, the energy in the building completely changes, because now you have a legitimate chance, regardless, even if the rest of the team was fairly similar to the year before, except for LeBron. But because of LeBron and his experience, you're like, oh, we have a real chance at winning. And then he got hurt that year, and just things happen the way they happen. And then this past season, when you get Anthony Davis, then you're one of the favorites to win an NBA championship. And just going into preseason games, you can feel the energy, because I get there, if the game's at 7:30 at night, I get there about 4:00. So there's no fans in the building, but you can still feel a difference in energy when the team has a legitimate chance of winning an NBA title. You can just, it's the whole arena just buzzes completely different. And, I don't take for granted I get to walk down the tunnel, the same tunnel that the players get to walk down when I go into the arena. It's such a unique experience that not everybody gets to enjoy like I do. And I try to post as much of it responsibly as I can on social media so people can kind of see it as well too, because it is a really extremely cool experience. If I never get to do it again, it was a cool experience for all the time I've been able to do it. So I will always appreciate it.
Yeah, and how different, oh, not how different, but how do you think will be the atmosphere right now in Orlando with the bubble of with the NBA returning on next week?
Yeah, they're actually, the Lakers, I think, are scrimmaging right now. Probably on TV would be my guess. I think at first it's going to be different for everybody. I think the scrimmages will help to get the players used to what it's going to be like, because what I've seen so far is they've kind of made it similar to the AVP, where it's a little bit more compact, so you don't see a full empty stadium, so it doesn't look empty, because the looking at an empty stadium is going to feel different than even if the stadium is actually empty, but it's everything, like your bench is closer, the video board blocks the rest of the arena, like that kind of stuff is going to help. But I think those guys are such professionals that they will lock in and they won't even hear. I don't think they hear the music at Staples Center anyways. They'll hear the crowd roar and stuff, but the other things, like, it doesn't affect them one way or the other, because they don't. Somebody could be yelling their name or heckling them, and they're just so locked into playing that they won't hear that kind of thing. So I think once they start playing real games, it'll feel almost completely natural. Like, I don't know if Casey said it. I meant to listen to him. If Casey, when he was on your show the other day, if he mentioned it, but I know he said he thought it was going to be different at the AVP event. But once the ball was served, like, all the competitive juices started flowing again, and everything felt like a real AVP volleyball match. So I would assume that's how the Lakers and all the other people in the NBA are going to feel too.
Oh yeah, yeah, yeah. Well, I think I'm pretty sure that it will be a lot different, but we hope next year we have an entire NBA season as normal.
I hope so. I keep hearing that maybe it'll start in December, but it may not start till 2021. I know there's no set date yet, but I hope I get to be back in Staples Center DJing for LeBron James and all of the Lakers fans, because uh, I miss them. I miss being in the arena. I miss the fans. I miss talking to them during the game, and I love basketball. I'm fortunate that the two sports I get to DJ for are sports that I really enjoyed growing up. So I get to play music, to watch volleyball and basketball. I definitely can't complain. That's for sure.
And get paid for that. It's incredible.
And get paid for it. I mean, I'm just, some people would say you're living the dream. So I'm definitely living the dream.
Okay, great, great. I'm very, very grateful for you, Jeremy. And please tell us something about, the impact in the early this year in February, I think it was the death of Kobe Bryant. You that work very close with the franchise. How was the feeling? How, I don't know if you can transmit us that feeling of the community in the Staples Center and in the whole Los Angeles about this terrible loss.
It was a shock. It's not like Kobe was an old guy that had been sick for years and you had some expectations like, oh, he's lived a long life. I mean, it was a shocking way to die, especially to somebody who's so famous, not just in Los Angeles or not just in the United States, but around the world. Um, I keep saying this, and maybe I should have stopped saying it earlier this year, but um, DJing sporting events and just DJing for as long as I have, I felt like I was always prepared for any situation. But that first game back after Kobe's death was not something I was ever prepared for, because it it was essentially a memorial service with a professional basketball game attached to it, right? Like the fans all came there to pay their respects and show support for the guys that were playing that night. But it was they were still sad. So there's that fine line of, do we get excited because it's a basketball game? Are we not allowed to cheer because we're still talking about Kobe? So it was definitely a unique experience, and something that I hope I don't have to do ever again. Uh, but being like preparing for that was not something. I mean, that's not a normal. It's just not a normal thing to be prepared for music wise. Like, what kind of music do you play? Do you play music that pumps up the crowd? Do you play music that doesn't pump up the crowd? You don't want to play sad music because we're at a professional basketball game, but you also have to respect the situation. And I'm sure there's some things I did that the organization was very happy with what I did. Nobody complained to me. Everybody, they trusted me, and they're like, you do what you feel is right. And I got to the point where I felt like if I played a song that somebody didn't like, or they felt like it was inappropriate or whatever, which is understandable, but I came from it from a, I'm doing this, this is what I think is right, and maybe that would be wrong, but I'm coming from a genuine place. So if I did something wrong that somebody didn't like, okay, but I came from it from a genuine place thinking that this is the right thing to do, and I think I did. Is I wouldn't have done anything different. Looking back now, there's nothing I would have done differently for that game. But like I said, I hope I don't have to do anything like that ever again.
Thanks for sharing, Jeremy.
Yep.
And please tell us something about your experience in Rio. I have heard, or I watched the games, and I have heard a lot of great stories about that phenomenal venue in Rio. And you played there. There were two ships, right? You were in.
Yeah. So yeah, there was two groups. So there was my group. It was me. We had an announcer, uh, game entertainment stuff, and then there'd be another group. So there were 6 matches a day, and you rotated. So one day I would do the morning and the night shift. So I do the 2 matches in the morning, have the afternoon off, come back for the night shift, and then the next day I would do the afternoon. So you never worked late night to morning, because sometimes the late night matches were at midnight in Rio. Um, but then towards the end of the Olympics, I started DJing some of the indoor matches too. So I would go morning at the beach, afternoon off, nighttime at the beach, morning indoor, afternoon beach, then rinse and repeat. So the last few days, I think the last 4 days during tournament play, I got no more than 4 hours of sleep each night. Now I'm sure I'm not the only one. I'm sure a lot of people had less sleep than that, but it was exhausting. Like, they're long days, and the venue was close enough to my hotel that I walked every day, because once I was in the venue, it felt like just a normal international event, even though I saw the Olympic rings and the stadium was huge. But the where I sat, I could only see about 1,000 people. So I couldn't see the other 11,000 people that were basically sitting on top of me. So it felt smaller to me being in the DJ booth because I couldn't see it all. So I wanted to make sure, walking to and from the venue, I was like, yes, you're at the Olympics. This is not just a normal day. Like, so I didn't take an Uber to and from the venue because I wanted that experience too. I was walking back to my hotel amongst all the fans that were leaving the venue. I wanted to hear how excited they were, just so I could get that little bit of an Olympics experience, because I was there working, not there as a fan. So that was my way to do that. And yeah, getting to say you DJ'd not only the Olympics, but DJing volleyball, and then DJing volleyball at the Rio Olympics on Copacabana Beach, where volleyball is such a big part of the history and culture down there. Like, I mean, I get goosebumps. I get goosebumps now just thinking about it. Like, it's a really cool thing to say. And I got to see friends compete at the Olympics. I got to see friends win medals. So, um, it, it's, again, I realize that that's something that not everybody else gets to experience, especially from the music side. And to have, Mike Tirico, who is a sports announcer here in the United States, call me the MVP because of all the music I played. Like, the athletes are the MVP, but because we played so much music in the venue, Toby, who was the other DJ, did an amazing job as well. Like, I learned so much from them because they do more international events than I do. So it was an amazing experience. And I still keep in touch with some people that live in Rio because we work together. And when you're with somebody in the quote unquote trenches for that long, like they become friends for life because you had a shared experience that's not normal for everybody.
Yes, well, that's great. Great. Thanks for sharing,
Yep.
Jeremy. I have some comments,
Sure.
especially from a good friend of mine, Octavio Medina, a
Okay.
Mexican a big beach volleyball fan, now living in Seattle, Washington.
Cool.
He says, Jeremy, which has been the craziest, funniest venue in AVP or FIVB? Which has been the funniest blooper, and how did you manage it?
Oh man. The craziest, I mean, the Olympics. I mean, in Rio, every song, if you played a song with a good beat, the entire crowd would clap along, stomp their feet. So it made you feel like you were the greatest DJ in the world. When in the United States at the Manhattan Beach Open, because it's so important, when that match is close or it goes into a third set, like, and the crowd is just losing their minds because it's back and forth, like those have been really cool things. Blooper wise, so I have sound effects, and now it's on an iPad, but before it was on a little machine that had buttons. And luckily it was during warmups, so I didn't affect the outcome of a point or the game, which thankfully, but it's sitting right next to my DJ equipment, and one of the staff members, like they brought cookies or they made cookies or their mom made cookies, and it was very nice of them. And they go to set it down next to my equipment, but they don't realize they're setting it on the sound effect machine. All of the sound effects went off at one exact moment. It was so loud. Stein Metzger, if you remember Stein,
Yes,
was
of
warming
course.
up. He jumped straight up in the air, and I swear to God, jumped straight up in the air, paused, and turned around mid-flight, and then landed on the ground. And it was funny now looking back at it, but like if that would have happened during like a rally or during a point, I would have felt terrible. Other than like I said, that one time when the music got cut off in Fort Lauderdale at my first event and the crowd applauded, like that's when I realized, like, okay, I need to pay attention to them a little bit more, not just the match itself. So that was a learning experience. And yeah, I can't think of any other bloopers. I mean, last year a ball came into the DJ booth in Hawaii and hit somebody's coffee cup, which you're not allowed to have open containers in the DJ booth, but somebody just set it there for 1 second. Fortunately, the coffee didn't get on my DJ equipment, but it was really, really close. And I don't know how I would have handled that. I wouldn't have been very happy about it.
No, that happened to me 2 years ago. A guy left
Nope,
cup of
can't do it.
coffee in the bench. A ball come straight to that, and it fell completely on my Mac. I was pretty angry.
I tell people all the time, like, I know no one's going to spill anything on purpose. I know that for sure. Like, but accidents happen. And if anybody's going to spill, it's going to be me. If it's somebody else, then I can fight you because it's you. But like me, it's my fault. I don't want liquid to land on my DJ equipment and be somebody else's fault. If it's going to be somebody's fault, it's going to be my fault.
Especially with coffee, because it's hot and it
Oh
burns.
yeah. Fortunately, it didn't ruin the event in Hawaii, and thankfully, because the men's finals in Hawaii was one of the most amazing things I've ever seen in person.
Right. Thanks for sharing.
Yep.
We have another.
Sure.
My friend Alex Barcenat from Mexico says, "Greetings to DJ Roueche, the best sports DJ." Thanks, Alex. Oh,
nice.
Thanks
Well, I appreciate that. Thank you so much.
Jeremy, I selected some photographs, some pictures from your profile. So
Yeah.
if you don't have problem, I want to share that.
Sure.
Nothing compromising.
If it's online, you can show it. I don't think I put anything compromising online, so it's fine.
Okay. This is your logo for
Yep.
It's the VALA logo or is the DJ Roueche logo?
That's the DJ Roueche logo. That's my personal logo.
It's your last name, right? Roueche is
Yep.
French origin.
Yeah, it is French. All of my cool nicknames as a kid were already taken by other DJs by the time I became a DJ. So I didn't know what to go with. So I knew nobody other than my family would have my last name as a DJ. So that's what I took.
And it looks great. It sounds great. Roueche.
Yes, I know because of there's a lot of letters in my last name that it's hard for some people to pronounce because it looks weird. But when people do say it correctly, I am very impressed. When they don't say it correctly, I understand and I don't get upset about it.
The correct way is Roueche or Roueche?
Roueche. I've been told, now I can't confirm this. I would need to talk to somebody who's actually lives in France, but somebody told me they would pronounce it Roueche in France, but I have no idea.
But
I've
you
never.
pronounce it Roueche.
Roueche is how I pronounce it. Yep.
Roueche. And which were your other options?
So with Roueche is my last name and Jeremy is my first name. J Rock was a name that I got called a lot. JR, just JR is something I got called a lot, and there are other DJs or music producers that have those names, so I couldn't take those.
Okay, that's great. And you made the design?
I did not. A really good friend of mine has made all of my logos, not only for DJ Roueche, but for my music production team, the Suicide Doors. And I just gave him an idea of, I was like, I had a logo before this that he designed, and we needed to update it to make it a little bit more modern. And I told him, that's all I told him was like, hey, I need an update on my logo. I trust you. And this was the first thing he sent. And I said, it's perfect.
Okay, yeah, it looks great.
Thank you.
Really.
Yeah, see the bird in that logo, that used to be my logo, because I've also been told, and now I don't know if this is true or not, but that like my last name means like peace or happiness, and a dove represents that. So the first logo was a dove looking thing, as you can see in that photo.
Well, I have a T-shirt with this logo. You remember when my
Yes,
friend, the
yeah.
referee?
Yep, as do I. Yes. Oh, that's right. That's right. Yes.
Yeah, you came because the not live T-shirts were sold out.
Sold out, right? Yeah. Yeah, that's good. I don't have any more of those shirts. So you have a limited edition
I have
shirt now.
one. Yeah, I was intended to put it on today for me, but I didn't find it.
Oh, it's all good.
How from this year? From what year is this picture?
I believe that is 2010.
10.
Yeah, because I think that's an old computer that I don't have anymore, and I think that was a PC computer, and I have a Mac now, and so I think that was 2010.
Well, Mac rocks, man.
Yeah. Oh yeah. Yeah, that was when I was in Rio for the test event, when I was there in February before the Olympics of 2016. I went to the statue then because I knew how busy it would be during the Olympics, and I didn't know if I would actually have free time to go. So I made sure I went in February where it wasn't that crazy. And, you get pictures from around the world, but for some reason, this one, like, I know I was standing in Rio because that is such a, like, there's nowhere else in the world that you're going to get that photo. So we had to take a certain angle so you couldn't see all the people around me, but it worked out, I think. Oh, yeah. So that is my DJ setup in Fort Walton Beach, Florida for the Fudpuckers four-person tournament. They do it 2 times a year, and schedule permitting, I go to both of them. The event in the spring, they could have up to like almost 300 teams of fours sign up, and they have a club right there on the beach, and I get to go DJ for people, and they have a great time.
Great.
And one of my favorite, that FUDS event is one of my favorite events to do too. It's, you're putting on a good event when the same people keep showing up year after year, and that's the kind of event they have. They have the same people that show up year after year, and I think that's a testament to the event that's put on down there.
That's right. Well, this is a great shot, man.
Yeah, I can't wait to do that again. So this photo right here, this past season was the first season that I was DJing from this location. If you look to the right-hand corner where you see the Lakers logo at the top of the building,
yep,
I used to be a little to the right of that. So I used to be at the top of the building, and we had talked with the Lakers about, I feel like especially in today's world, if the fans can see where the music is coming from, they will connect with it more, whether they know they're connecting with it because they can see me or not, but they will connect with it more. And so the Lakers were kind enough to say, hey, we'll put you in this location. And now there are fans 2 feet away from me all the way around that photo during the game. And it's fun to be right next to them when they are cheering and screaming and yelling or saying they love the song that I'm playing. It's a lot of fun.
And well, with this haircut, your Casey Parton says you are the Tomahawk Brothers.
Yes. Unfortunately, I don't have that haircut anymore
No,
because no, I during my hair all grew out during quarantine, so I don't have that anymore. So we'll hopefully I'll get back to. My hair doesn't look cool anymore right now. I'm gonna be honest. I don't have cool hair like Casey does anymore. But I'll get back to him. I'll get back to it.
so you have long hair right now, or what?
Yeah, all like so. There's no mohawk anymore. All like the sides in this photo where it's really short. It's longer now. I look a lot more like my dad. I'm not gonna lie to you. Not that that's a bad thing, but I definitely look like my dad. Never had a mohawk, but I look like my dad now.
Great.
I believe that was this past women's Final Four in
In Pittsburgh.
Pittsburgh, yes. And I think it was either Ed Chan or I am completely Gomez from Chicago. I can't believe I was blanking on his last name. That took that photo, yeah. But that was the women's Final Four in Pittsburgh this last year. And I think that was my second year doing the women's Final Four for the NCAA.
Yeah.
Second or third. It might have been my third, but it was fun because I used to go to those with a Net Live, and we would do a podcast from the convention center, and then I knew that my name had been talked about to started to add music to those events, and then finally they were like, hey, let's try it out. And after the first year, everybody really liked it. So I think this was my third year that I did it. I think that's three.
But um, you don't always work with NCAA, right? You work with Pac-12 or
Yeah, I do stuff with the Pac-12. So with the Pac-12 now, I do their football championship and their in the men's basketball tournament in Las Vegas.
yeah.
And the people that do the production behind the scenes for those also do the production for this women's Final Four with the NCAA. So I know they had told them like, hey, if you ever want to do music like they do at all these other events, we work with this DJ all the time. And then they brought me in, and the people that I've worked with at the NCAA are great, and it is a lot of fun. And being as I like to joke about, a beach guy, getting to DJ indoor events is a lot of fun for me too. Except for when it goes 5, like that's a really long time. After only on beach when you can only go 3, on indoors when you can go 5, that could be a long time to play music. Oh yeah, Chicago last year with my fake gold chain, my gold Oakley glasses, and my DJ Roueche logo hat. Yeah, that's good times. Sometimes you got to keep yourself entertained. That is not an outfit I normally wear, but sometimes you got to do what you got to do.
Yes, of course.
Man, look how tiny of a human I am compared to Kevin Barnett.
Kevin, and please tell me, I never understand very well how the Not Live shut down, because I try to be there every Monday.
Yeah.
What exactly happened with the Not Live?
So Kevin and I hate each other now, and we don't want to be friends. No,
No.
I'm just kidding. Totally kidding. Totally kidding. No, we had. I told Kevin originally, after the Tokyo Olympics, I would finish that year of the Net Live, but I was ready to move on and focus on some other things, or other things that I wanted to put more focus on. And Kevin understood. And then like a month later, he's like, does anybody care if we don't do the show anymore? And jokingly, we were both like, no. So then it turned into, we were going to go for another year, when we went for like 6 more months total. And I just think there were just other things we wanted to do to put more focus on. Because the Net Live, as you know, doing a podcast, like even though we did it for 2 hours every Monday, it basically took up your whole Monday. Like we either trying to get guests, editing the show afterwards, setting up, tearing down. Like our whole Monday was that essentially for the most part, other than just the 2 hours we were on. And Kevin, as you can tell now, likes to work with wood. If you follow Kevin on Instagram, he does a lot of woodworking in his garage. So he same thing. There were other things he wanted to focus on, and we felt like it was a good 10-year run, and we left it. And now there's the Sandcast is out there. You're doing stuff. Rob Sparrow's doing stuff. So other people have
viral volleyball.
Yeah. Yep. Other people have taken up the mantle, so we don't have to do it anymore.
Okay, well, that was a shame for me, for the fans, but well, I understand that.
Yes, and we have gotten lots of people that say they miss us, and that makes me feel good. And I really, if I didn't do the net live, I wouldn't know Kevin the way I know Kevin. I wouldn't have played sitting volleyball because Katie Holloway reached out to Kevin. I wouldn't have been any part of that. So I got to know a lot more of the indoor national team players too because of Kevin. So I'm very thankful for all the time that I got to spend on the net live.
Yeah, well, for me, I really was waiting for the Mondays to listen and to watch the live.
And I appreciate that. And I got tricked into hosting that show, right? Have you heard that story?
No, please tell me.
Yes. So Geeter, who was on the show, and Reed Pretty in Long Beach 2010 was at the event, came up to me and was like, hey, we would like to add a musical element to the show. Would you be interested? I said, absolutely. So then in January of 2011 was my first time on the show, and Geeter and Kevin did most of the talking. Reed would be on every once in a while. I had a mic just to make fun of Geeter every once in a while, but I would just play music. And then Geeter couldn't show up to a Monday, or Reed wasn't there. So then I didn't want Kevin to have to do it by himself. So I had a mic, and Kevin would do mostly everything, and I would just kind of chime in from time to time. And then Geeter hated us, and so he left the show. And then now all of a sudden I'm hosting a show that if you talk to my family, this is the only way I can say, if you talk to my family and you told them that I was going to be a DJ in front of thousands of people or co-host a podcast, they would have laughed at you, because as a kid, I didn't talk to anybody. I didn't want to talk in class. I hated talking in front of people. So the fact that I was doing all that stuff, but I tell Geeter all the time that he tricked me into hosting that show when they said, oh, just come and play music. And then now all of a sudden, 10 years later, I was co-hosting it.
Man, the same for me. If anybody has told me at the beginning of the year, hey, you are going to do 79 Volley Talks live on Zoom via Facebook, I will tell them, you're crazy.
Yeah,
you're crazy. You're totally crazy. Me talking in the front of a camera with people from other countries, speaking in English, you are totally crazy. Go.
I still to this day, I don't like talking in front of people. If you ask Rich Lamborn, who has seen me do some talks and at some conventions, will laugh at you and be like, you don't seem nervous up there, but he doesn't realize, like, on the inside, like, I'm sweating, I'm super nervous, I don't want to be there. So still to this day, I get nervous doing it, but got to do what you got to do.
Hey, look, man.
Yes, I love it.
I have the hat.
Yes, since 2009.
Yes,
it's crazy how long.
Volleyball talk show.
The original. No one can claim that. We are the original.
Yes, all of we are fakes.
That's right.
Copies.
Yeah,
imitations.
Exactly. That's fine. I'm glad somebody else is doing it. I'm happy that other people are able to do it.
Okay, and he's the stand of AVP for DJ Roueche.
Yeah, and that was Chicago as well. It was a Gold Series event because you can see me in the right-hand corner with my gold jacket on and my gold hat.
Yeah.
And I believe that was AVP. And Chicago is one of my favorite cities ever. So getting to travel there usually once a year to DJ volleyball events is amazing.
Which your favorite spot for in AVP? There's New York, Seattle, Tampa, or Fort Lauderdale, I don't know, Chicago. Which your favorite spot?
I really like I like New York just because it's so different than California. So you get a little bit of a different vibe. Where Chicago to me feels like it's a combination of New York and Los Angeles. And I love anywhere we go that I can stay in the hotel and walk to the event site. I'm a really big fan of. So I'd probably pick one of those just because I'm not there all the time, but you can't beat I mean, Southern California events, it's hard to pick a favorite because you would think like, oh, Seattle, it's not going to be, but the Seattle fans show up every single year. They are loud, they make tons of noise, and they're having a good time. And like, it, I've never been to a city that I didn't like. How about that? Like the fans have been great. Now I've been to cities where the weather was terrible and I wasn't happy about that, but it's never been an issue with fans or the event wasn't fun, those kind of things.
Oh, great.
Yeah, that was my view from the DJ booth at the Olympics. So that's during the award ceremony. So all the photographers are right there. Like normally you'd see the court, and across from me underneath the Olympic rings was VIP. And so that was, maybe a few hundred people, but the rest of the arena is around me. So I couldn't see them. That's all. That was my view the whole Olympics.
Okay.
That was after the Olympics. That is when you get pictures with Olympians, you do that. Anna Paula was on. I don't. She was not on my crew of. We worked opposite schedules, but obviously I knew who she was before going there because I'm a volleyball fan. So getting to meet her and know her a little bit, and she lives in Southern California, is married to former AVP player Cara Hinkle. Yeah, it was a very cool experience. And just so you know, I'm standing on my toes there because she's taller than me.
Well, that was the last. You have tons of pictures in your Facebook profile, but well, I just selected some of them,
Cool.
so we can illustrate more
Awesome.
your career, Jeremy. Octavio Medina, again, he's living in Seattle. He was intended to play almost the qualification tournament. He says so sad about Seattle AVP was canceled.
Yeah, I mean, just this season in general, just the fact that we're having events these 3 weeks is amazing. I thought this season was. I didn't think I'd be DJing another sporting event until the Lakers eventually came back to Staples Center at some point. So the fact that I personally get to DJ sports again in Long Beach is awesome. I know, it's a smaller draw. Not as many players were able to go, and a lot of that is, health official stuff. There's only a certain amount of people you can have on site, so nothing is perfect for everybody. But I'm glad that the AVP was able to pull something off, and for the fans too, right? Like just being able to see volleyball on TV, I'm sure was very exciting for people.
Yes, for sure, it's not the venue or the event we want, but at least and gratefully we have the beach volleyball back.
Yeah, if you're a fan and like it's not what you're normally used to, that's fine. But I, I'm a fan of volleyball too. I would just, if I wasn't able to be there in person, I'm just thankful that at least some of the players get an opportunity to play and that there is volleyball. Like there wasn't good, like a few months ago, no one thought there would be any volleyball. So I'm couldn't be happier that even if I wasn't involved, I couldn't be happier that there was events being able to be put on.
Yeah, I told Casey on Tuesday that well, obviously every money is welcomed, but these three events, the money is important, but it's not the most important. I think watching on TV because is I think the most important is to go back to the court to go back to beach volleyball.
Yeah, and I mean, don't get me wrong. I'm sure the players, especially Phil and Nick, who won, love the money. But I'm sure the fact of not knowing when volleyball would be back again, and then all of a sudden there are a few events, like just being able to compete, um, getting back on the court and doing it for real, as opposed to, at somebody's private location at their home. You're able to compete with people that you've competed with, most of your professional career, and it be on TV, and just to feel, not that we all need to feel normal again, but there's a little bit normal of a feeling of these are people I'm around all the time and I haven't seen them in months, and now I get to go out there and play volleyball.
Yes, of course. Jeremy, please tell us something about this the Suicide Doors project.
Yeah. So the Suicide Doors is a music production team. The DJ world now is, if you're a DJ producer is basically the same thing in people's minds. So I was a DJ first, where a lot of people who are professional DJs were producers first. And making music is something that I've always wanted to do. I just had no idea how to do it. Nobody around me was making music. I didn't know what questions to ask. And when I wanted to get into it, you know, either you had to pay $10,000 to go to a school, there was no YouTube tutorials, all of that stuff. So it was always in my mind and felt like that was the next natural step in my DJ career, was to make music. And then fortunately, one of the DJs that does a bunch of events for my company, he started getting into producing. I was dabbling in it a little bit. We put out our very first music project as the Suicide Doors, was like 5 or 6 songs, and we produced each song individually, even though it was still under the Suicide Doors name. And then after that, I was like, let's do this together, since we're doing it together anyways. So from that point on, all the songs we make were collaborations between us. And then we will, since neither one of us is a singer, we will reach out to either hip hop artists or singers to be featured on our tracks. So the Suicide Doors is a passion project, and something that I want to be able to also make a living at besides just DJing. I want to do both. And because we're DJs, and because the DJ world, I know it's a long explanation, but because the DJ world and the producer world is so entwined, a lot of DJs perform live as their producers, as they're playing their own music. So as the Suicide Doors, we also perform live. So it's 2 DJs, and then we have a conga drummer and either a saxophone player or a violinist that plays with us. So it adds a little bit more of a live element, and I think more appealing to the crowd that sees us play live. But yeah, you can, the Suicide Doors, if you look it up on Spotify or Apple Music or Tidal, like, our music will be on there.
Okay, I will look for more Suicide Doors music.
And if you want to know what we look like live, if you go to the suicidedoors.com or our YouTube page, like, we have a promo video. So like it kind of explains, because I have friends of mine that are like, well, you're just DJing, that they've known DJ Roueche forever. So like DJ Roueche, I always say DJ Roueche has to take your requests, where the Suicide Doors, we're artists, and that's not what we do. So yeah, if you see that video, it'll explain what we look like and sound like live a little bit better.
Okay, thanks. I hate to call you DJ Roueche because I know you. You are Jeremy for me.
You can call me Jeremy. That's fine.
No, you're for me. You're Jeremy.
That's fine.
Jer-
No problem.
Jeremy, which are the pro DJs you like the most? You know, people like Tiesto or Armin van Buuren or Paul van Dyk, something like that. I really like an Israeli guy who is called Ofer Nissim. I really love him.
I'll have
He
to check him
plays
out. I haven't heard of him.
never Ofer Nissim. He's great. He
Okay.
plays house music.
Okay.
Great. Ofer Nissim with double S, with
I'll
double
check him out.
F Ofer and double S Nissim. Ofer Nissim. He's great.
I will check that out. When I did the King of the Court tour last year, Ryan Mariano and Sunnery James, I think, produced the music. So I got to meet them. I had never heard of them before that. So now I follow them. So they're DJ producers that I really like. But the main DJ producer that I'm a big fan of is A-Track, because A-Track, Trak. He did the song, the song Barbara Streisand by Duck Sauce.
Yes, of course.
So he did that. He produced that with another partner. And he won. A-Track is, not only is he a DJ, but he is a battle DJ, meaning he's a turntablist. So he's doing all kind of scratches and tricks and all that stuff. But then he can do that. He can also DJ a hip hop club, a house club, a Vegas club, and then produce music. So he can kind of do it all. So he's somebody that, like, I look up to in that way and respect, because I know all those are all separate skills. You can be the best at just one of those, not the best at all of those. And he's one of those that's one of the best at all of those. And I like his music. And Diplo, I'm a big fan of Diplo and Major Lazer. A big fan of them.
Oh, Major Lazer, yeah.
Yep. And I'm sure there's more that just aren't popping in my head right now. There's so many like DJs that don't produce that I really respect, like a guy named Z Trip, where he does produce a little bit, but he's more known DJ wise. And
Z Trip,
Z, like
Z
zebra.
Drip.
Yeah, TRIP. Z Trip. Yep.
Z Trip. Okay.
Yep.
Oh, I will Google them.
Yeah. So like I anybody that has skills that I don't have, I really respect. And if you can DJ a club and produce music and do all kinds of cool tricks on the turntables and it sounds cool, then you're gonna have my respect for sure.
Okay. And well, which I know that you love hip hop. I also love hip hop. Which are your favorite artists? I think the last year, I think Lil Nas X is doing some
That
great music.
that song,
Alter Road.
Old Town Road is I love that song.
I love that song.
It's a totally cheesy pop song, and that's not normally what I'm into. But anytime that song comes on or anytime I play it, I will sing every single word to that song, and I have no shame in my game of saying that. No shame at all. For me, hip hop wise, I grew up on like '90s hip hop, so A Tribe Called Quest is my favorite hip hop group of all time.
Cold Quest.
A Tribe Called Quest.
Cold Quest. Okay.
Yep. Yeah, so they're my
because the most normal, famous, obviously, are Dr. Dre, Snoop Dogg, J. Cole, something.
Yeah. So like '90s would be Tribe Called Quest, Jay-Z. I'm a big fan of.
Jay-Z, yeah.
Now Kendrick Lamar is one of my favorite artists. Like he's one of those artists that like I feel like I need a new album. Like I need some more Kendrick Lamar in my life, so I'm waiting on that. And
this track, Humble, is
so good.
It's blowing. It's mind blowing.
It's one of those songs. Every few years, there's a song that comes out that the first time you hear it, you know it's going to be a huge hit, and you're going to have to play it all the time. And that's one of those songs. And that song, it's not going to get old. I can play that song today at an AVP event. I can play it in 10 years at an AVP event or a Lakers game, and it's going to work. Just the energy of that song, his flow in that song, it just works. It was like, do you remember In the Club by 50 Cent?
Yes, of course.
So when that song came out, if you were DJing that song in the club, and this is not something I would normally do, you had to play that song multiple times a night. That's just how popular it was. And Humble was one of those things too. You had to play it as many times as you could because everybody wants to hear it. You could play it back to back, and people were like, "Yeah, let's do this," and be as excited the second time they heard it.
And happens the same with in the club.
Well, 100%. Yeah,
100%.
It was like that Dr. Dre beat was so catchy, and it just worked. Like again, that song you could still play today, and it's gonna work. Like when Whitney Houston song, I Want to Dance with Somebody. Like you'll be able to play that song forever, right? Like it's never gonna get old. Every generation's gonna know it, and they're all gonna sing every single word to it. Like there are just those songs like that every few years.
It's like playing "We Will Rock You" of Queen in a sports venue. You can play it 50 years from now, the people went crazy with that.
Yeah. There's something about just, and you can't do that on purpose. Like you can't go into the studio and be like, hey, we're gonna make a sports anthem. Because I'm the Lakers DJ, I get so much music. People are like, hey, I just made this Lakers anthem. It's no, you didn't, and it's not ever going to be played because it's terrible. So if you're trying to make that, it's usually not going to work. So something like "We Will Rock You" just came out of nowhere, and that's going to be a sports like when the White Stripes made Seven Nation Army. There's no way they realized how big of a sports song that was going to be, and now you can play that at every sporting event for the rest of your life.
Or "Rock and Roll Part 2."
Yes. I don't play that song anymore. We don't have to get into it. Well, we don't have to get into it. If you just look up the artist of that song has got into some legal trouble, and the specific legal trouble that artist has gotten into makes me not play that song anymore. But that's a personal preference. So if anybody wants to look that up, they can look that up and figure out why I don't do that anymore. But yes, that song, I mean, it's in movies, right? Like if your song makes it in movies for every single sporting movie you've ever seen in your life, like you've done a good job.
Yes, right. Jeremy, please tell us something about your. I think it's difficult because of your position, but your favorite players or the players you like the most, their passion to play, their passion to live the game, male or female, I don't know. I hope not to put you in a uncomfortable
not
situation.
At all. I'll talk about a retired player. How about that? Misty May Trainer was one of my favorite players to watch. She just always seemed to be in the right place at the right time. Obviously, playing with Carrie Walsh Jennings, like that would make me good. Like I could play defense behind that block, but Misty was, I think Misty and Carrie, if you're making a Mount Rushmore of beach volleyball, they have to be on it. And
along with Randy and Sinjin.
Yes, and I think you have to put Phil on there. In my professional opinion, Phil is the best player of all time, and that takes nothing away from anybody else. I'd be very curious. If Karch felt that way too. Next time I see him, I'll ask him like, "Hey, how do you feel about Phil?" Just because Phil can do it all, because he can block, he can play defense, he can set, like he just does it all. Anyways, Misty was one of my favorite players to watch. She's just, if you see still photos of her, I will remember like really scramble plays. And I was like, oh, how did she pop that up? And then I would see a still photo of that play and she would have perfect platform, perfect body alignment. Like she was so fundamentally sound and then more athletic than you thought she would be. And just was she had her and Carrie both as a combination. Like, I don't think that team gets talked about enough in the sports world about how good they really were together. Like that 103 match win streak for however long that was, and then 3 Olympic gold medals in a row. Like, I mean, they have to be talked about as one of the best teams of all time.
I think they set the bar really high.
Oh, absolutely. I mean, and today too, like I enjoy, because I am not a tall individual, like I enjoy watching Nick Lucena side out because he's siding out against giants, or Taylor Crabb, same thing. He's siding out against giants. Obviously, Casey Patterson is fun to watch because he is talking the entire time. He's not talking to you. He's not talking to me. He's just talking. Sometimes he might talk to the other team, but like he's just talking, and it's very entertaining to me.
It's part of the show.
Yeah, it's great. I even though we joke that watching Phil and Todd play volleyball was boring because they were so good, but when I got to see them all the time on stadium court, they were so good at playing the sport, and just little things that as a casual fan you wouldn't know, like Todd, and you see Nick Lucena do this too. He would get set, he would let the ball come to his right shoulder, and he would hit it on the way down because he was letting the block bring their hands down, and then he would hammer it down the line. Now, you wouldn't teach that. You wouldn't teach, I want to hit the ball at my highest peak, but Todd would let it come. But that's something small that not everybody would know. And like, after being around everybody for so long and learning those little things, like it's amazing to me because they're all top athletes. And then you have those that are just that little bit better for whatever reason. Like it blows my mind of how amazing of athletes they are.
Right. And I watched the TV, and I watched the spike of the weekend was awarded to Skylar del Sol. It's a huge spike.
That thing hit a hot pocket in the sand, and that might be rolling down PCH outside the venue in Long Beach right now. I don't know. That ball went really far.
Yeah, it was really hard. Jeremy, what else? It's a very, very entertaining talk. What else did you want to talk? We talk about the music, players, AVP, NBA, The Not Live, Kobe Bryant. Yes, I know what.
Yeah.
Which real Mexican food do you like the most?
It's a great question.
Jeremy, Taco Bell and Chipotle are not Mexican food.
Yes, no, they are definitely not Mexican food. I'm a big fan of enchiladas.
Oh yeah.
And tamales, like fresh cooked tamales. One of the women that work for the Lakers, she makes them every Christmas and brings them to the game, and they are amazing. So that would be my answer. And just so you know, I haven't been to Taco Bell in years because it's not real Mexican food, so that wouldn't even cross my mind.
Last year, I was in the Vietnam Cup in Colima, and I was hanging around with the USA volleyball players, and I tell them, hey, let's come here and taste these tamales from one woman that was selling tamales, and they love that. A lot of them tell me, hey, I've never tried tamales. They're great. They're tasty. They're hot. They're spicy. But yes, the tamales are great.
Or if they've had tamales in the United States, it may not have been actually what tamales should be, right? So they may not have ever had real tamales before. So having them like for real, you're like, of course it's gonna taste good.
I know very well Stephanie Ray Hossack, the
Mm-hmm.
wife of
Jay
the hus-
Hossack, yeah,
of Jay Hossack. She
contributor to
loves,
the Net Live for sure.
yes, very funny guy.
Yep,
She loves Mexican food, and we are very good friends because I send them not recipes, but only just a little adjustments to the
cool.
recipes. And he told me once, I think 2 years ago, hey, I ordered tamale leaves from Amazon. From Amazon, I can remember she told me, yeah, 20 or 30 leaves for $12. I told her, hey, that's that's a thief.
Yeah,
No,
that's not gonna be real.
no. I ordered tamale leaves on Amazon. No, well, I
No,
know that there are different conditions, but
we all make mistakes. It happens.
it was very crazy for me to hear that the tamale leaves on Amazon. But
Yeah,
well,
crazy. You could buy a car on Amazon probably, much less leaves. Yeah.
Jeremy, it has been a great talk, very funny, very entertaining. Do you want to send us a final words, final conclusions of this very interesting talk? And thanks a lot for being here.
Of course. Well, thanks for having me. I always enjoy talking volleyball in my career. And if anybody has questions about it, they can hit me up on social media. I will always respond. The only other thing that I would promote is during this, like you started this, I started a podcast called Beat Talks, where I'm talking to DJs from around the sporting world just to see how they DJ basketball games. I just talked to the Los Angeles Dodgers DJ the other day
Wow.
because I'm curious. Like I get asked all the time, like you're asking me how I got this job, and it's not a typical job, and you don't. It's not a typical job um, to get.
It's not a 9 to 5 job.
Yeah, it's definitely not a 9 to 5. So if I was getting that question, I'm sure all the other DJs that I know get that question. So I started that podcast and get to know some of my friends a little bit more, how they DJ games, because we all don't DJ the exact same way. And so that's called Beat Talks, and that's on Spotify, on Apple Music. If you want to go,
Beat talks.
yeah,
Beat
Beats,
talks.
Beats
Beat
Talks.
talks. Okay.
Yep. Or you can go to beattalks.com, and that'll give you all the information there.
Okay. Okay. Well, tomorrow we will have here Daniel Scott,
Cool.
5-time Olympian, out directly from Baton Rouge, Louisiana.
Awesome.
And thanks a lot, Jeremy, for being here. Really appreciate it. I hope to see you pretty soon. Could sound a
Hopefully.
little ridiculous,
Yep.
but hopefully in the next year in AVP or maybe Nations League or maybe NCAA. For sure, I will be there. You know, I really love volleyball, and I really like being involved in all this volleyball stuff. You
Me
know,
too. Me too.
yeah.
Thank you. Thank you for having me. I appreciate it.
Oh no, thanks to you, Jeremy. Keep safe, stay home
All
the
right.
more possible. Yeah.
That's right.
Okay.
All right.
See you, Jeremy.
Bye.
Bye.